As we gear up for night 2 of the Women's World Cup from Australia and New Zealand, let's recap some of the comings and goings of night 1 and what has already been a somewhat eventful World Cup, and at least starting off on the right foot. From Stadium Australia last night, there were 75,784 fans. In Auckland, there were 45,000 spectators. That is a huge first night, one that saw both home teams win, Australia coming away with a 1-0 win, New Zealand winning their first ever World Cup game, and a bit of a shock, and we'll kind of get into that here in this video. But I want to start off talking about Australia. I know they played second technically, but it's kind of the bigger story here because they are not necessarily the favorites, but I think they are a strong candidate for winning this tournament, especially with that home field advantage, the home country advantage. But before this match, Sam Kerr was ruled out for last night's match and the upcoming match this week against Nigeria. Ideally, at that point, she'll be reevaluated for her injury to her calf. They said after the match they don't know what the grade of strain it is, so if you're an Australia fan, if you're a not American fan, you're probably hoping, and obviously American fans too, I love Sam Kerr, and everyone wants this World Cup to be the best players on the best players. So everyone should want Sam Kerr to come back. However, is she going to have that explosiveness that, is her calf going to be good to go to the point where, it makes sense to throw her in for what will be a tough game against Canada? Hopefully, Australia can take care of business against Nigeria, and then the Canada game, if Sam Kerr is still questionable, do you just hold her out at that point and hope that she's ready to go for the knockouts? I think it's an interesting question, because Australia did struggle at times throughout this game. Now, they were able to grind out a win, but Caitlin Ford, Mary Fowler took some time to kind of get into the swing of things. Ultimately, the second half was much better than the first. So maybe that's a sign that Australia can adapt, can adjust without Sam Kerr. And I think there's enough quality there in the squad to where even when you're missing a player as good as Kerr, that you can still game plan and come away with good victories. Tony Gustafsson is a very good coach, I think. So obviously you saw from this match the adjustments that they were able to make throughout the second half. For as good as Ireland were at kind of gumming up the works and making sure that Australia was not really on top of their game, on top of their kind of sharpness for this match, ultimately the deciding goal comes in that second half when midfielder Kyra Cooley-Cross would find herself in enough space to kind of lift a ball over the top. Haley Rosso would just get clattered into the box, and I thought it was interesting that the Ireland players were still kind of protesting this, because to me it was pretty clear that it was coming together in the box, and the Australian players should have had the advantage there. So as Rosso is taken down by Marissa Sheva, it earns a penalty, and Steph Carley would easily slot the penalty home, and Australia would go up 1-0, and they would from there be able to grind out the result and come away with a 1-0 victory in front of 75,000 fans, really starting off the World Cup right, and viewing it on a macro level, it clearly is important that Sam Kerr comes back, because Ireland is not the greatest team in this tournament, and I think you've seen from the run-ups that as much as there are a lot of likable players on this team, it should be a group that Australia can just easily move past, but they had their troubles in this one. I think also Ireland kind of get by playing just a simple, structured game that sometimes it can be hard to break down if you were. I think you saw that a bit in some of the U.S. friendlies, in that Ireland do play an organized low block, and sometimes that can be difficult to break down, especially when you have competent defensive players. So you saw a little bit of that in this match, and that Ireland weren't trying to do anything too complicated. They weren't trying to stretch things out too much. They had their chances. They couldn't capitalize, obviously, but they still did the job here. They did much better than you would maybe expected before this tournament. But crazy things happen in the World Cup, and nothing ever comes easy. You saw that in the Men's World Cup last year. Just that reminder that strange things happen. And speaking of strange things that can happen, New Zealand win their first ever World Cup match. And again, like we said, 45,000 in Auckland, which it was kind of emotional. The mass shooting in Auckland yesterday was near the team camps, or it was at least near where the U.S. team was camped out. I think there were a couple other teams in that area. I think everyone's kind of in that same space. So bit of a harrowing experience. You saw the moment of silence before this match. And honestly, New Zealand kind of outplayed Norway in this one. I kind of gum shocked by how bad Norway was compared to what they should be, right? And they had a chance, but they failed to capitalize. Victoria Essen stood tall, punched the ball at the crossbar. That was kind of their lone chance to capitalize on some sloppy play from New Zealand. But the play from Jacqueline Hand, the play from Hannah Wilkinson, really sealed the day. And as Wilkinson kind of there was a way to beat Norway here, and that is Wilkinson kind of beat them out wide in a bit of a fast break offense kind of way. That transition offense, New Zealand can punch you well with that, especially when they're playing with that home field energy, that home pitch energy. And they were ready for the moment. Jika Klimkova obviously has this team set up in a way where they can take advantage of a Norway squad. And like we said, they were able to kind of exploit those wide areas, exploit those transition spaces. And Norway, just for whatever reason, was not up to the task in this match. And obviously that happens, but Norway's now behind the 8 ball, and lose a game like this that should have been a winnable match. They'll need to bounce back quickly, that's for sure. For New Zealand, now you're looking at a potential to move on into the knockouts because you won that first game. You may just need to grab a result in the match against Switzerland, or in their match next week. Norway probably need to beat Switzerland in order to kind of have this opportunity to move into the knockouts now. So they can't afford to slip up again. It makes things much more interesting when an upset like this kicks off the group, right? I guess some final points before we just kind of say goodbye, move on to night 2. Lena Oberdorf, the amazing German midfielder, potentially picked up an injury heading into match day 1 as well. And that's something to pay attention to because Germany is a much different team without her than with her. No real updates on Sam Kerr at this point. Like we said, they're going to reevaluate after the second match, see if she's ready to return or if she needs some more time. Sam Kerr was obviously pretty broken up about this. You can see it from the times that they would catch her on the bench. She put out a statement on Instagram as well, just showing her real disappointment. And honestly, any player, you play so long to get to this moment. So much of your career centers around these World Cup, these Olympic moments. Not every player has that opportunity then to do it in front of your home crowd. For a player like Sam Kerr, where at sometimes the weight of the women's soccer world is on her shoulders, that's a tough pill to swallow. Those are kind of the big stories here heading into match day 2. Of course, coming up, we have Canada and Nigeria as kind of the main marquee matchup. So let me know what you thought of that match coming up. In a couple of hours, we will have our review of match day 2. But for now, everyone, get some sleep, enjoy the rest, and we'll talk very soon.